This is John Goodwin. We're here at the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast, and I'm here with a very special guest, Mr. Rob Pryor. He's been with us for a couple of years as a judge, and we originally met you, I think, with the Winter Twins at San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, great girls. Very talented. Yeah, that's why I met you.
Yeah, and since then we've gotten to be very good friends and very much like-minded purposes to forward the arts.
Absolutely. That's what it's about, you know. It's about getting artists a chance and having them move forward in life.
Yeah, because it was, one of the things that we've got, because we do the contest that was created by L. Ron Hubbard in the early 80s, and then expanded into Illustrators of the Future, and the whole thing is the artist puts the future there. They're the ones that actually create, they have that mock-up that becomes future reality, and you've experienced that in all kinds of forms of art.
Yeah, that's an understatement. I think that the contest itself is one of the only places of prestige that an artist can send their stuff, and writers, but I primarily will talk about the artists. Go figure. They can send their stuff, but it can elevate, an artist. And something I just said to you when we weren't, live here, is anything you can put in your portfolio or your resume which indicates an advancement that is meaningful is fantastic.
Yeah. Now right here on Hollywood Boulevard, where your studio is, you branched into movies. So,
I have, yes.
How'd that evolution go?
Dumb luck. No, a far smarter man than me said luck is just preparation meets opportunity. So, I was prepared and I had the opportunity. And it just happened to be that I was fairly decent at it, which is now leading to more films. And I think in art in general, it's a progression. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you want to do movies or whether or not, there's always something that I think an artist needs to push for or look forward to, whether it be bigger gallery shows. I ran into a couple of artists, one yesterday, and as a matter of fact, that was very content, which is fine, is absolutely fine at being where he was, but then he complained about not making enough money. And I was like, well, then you have to be able to move forward. So I think an artist should always be on the lookout for whatever their next step is. And, bringing it, full circle here for a second, I think writers and illustrators of the future, gives a chance and also lets them talk to, many of their peers to see where they are, and many of the people who have made it before them to see how they got there.
Exactly. Now you studied under Frank Frazetta for
a very short period of time, one semester in school. Yes, but it was life-changing.
But that was his last class.
It was his very last one in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, because he was one of the first illustrators of the future judges, and he was very, very keen on the whole subject of paying it forward, and he loved this contest. He came a few different times to the awards events, but he was very much into paying it forward and helping the next generation that the future of illustration of art was there. So what did you get from working with him, or what was his impact?
Just, even at that point, he was a legend. So, what I got was, well, first of all, a lot of shit for not doing things right. But it was one of the very first times in my life that I could say, wow, somebody made it, so why can't I?
Right.
And I thought that was probably the thing I took most out of it in some way. Obviously technique and stuff like that. By the way, if you hear a purring in the background, that's just my compressor. Welcome to my studio. At least it's not people screaming.
Yes.
And that's why I liken even my experience then to the illustrators of the future.
Yeah, I mean, he just had his. I mean, one of his paintings just sold for $4.2 million.
Yeah, that's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like I said, he did it. So if he can do it, and your objection to do it while you're still, it will be to do it while your object will be to do it while you're still alive.
Well, hopefully. I mean, that's the goal.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to enjoy it. But yeah, and but I think, I think a smart artist also plans for their inevitable demise.
Yeah.
And making sure that they leave a legacy, whatever legacy that is.
Good. Now, bridging over to another subject.
Absolutely.
Drips. How did you evolve? That's like it's almost like unique. You've created that as a whole art form.
Yeah, I was primarily a photorealist early on in my career. For most of the years, I was with Dungeons and Dragons TSR. It was semi-photorealistic fantasy, and then I moved into airbrushing, and it was airbrushing perfect photorealism. This is sort of predating Photoshop, which ages me a bit. But so that was what I did. So my goal in my everyday existence was to create the most photorealistic thing I could. Mm-hmm. Well, I burned out on that. And, I remember when I moved to Hollywood and I sort of switched up careers a little bit when I first got here, which was, storyboarding and, all the things dealing with entertainment, or this basic entertainment, movies. I just got burned out, man. And I'd always painted sort of sloppy and drippy and stuff like that because it was how I could get away from my own, trappings, I guess.
Yeah.
And my wife one day looked at me and because I was like, I'm burning out, honey. And she was like, I can't live with you if you're not painting because I'll go crazy. So she goes, why don't you just paint like you normally do? And I was like, nobody wants to see that. Come to today. I mean, that's how I paint. And I throw paint, pray to God it looks like something when I'm done.
Which it definitely does. Now, one thing that you've touched on so many different aspects of art throughout your career. Some people give the advice, just stick to one thing and just really do it. You've definitely not followed that as a point of advice.
They always say, was it Jack of all trades, master of none? Whoever said that can basically F off. I think as an artist, especially today, you need to know how to do multiple things because, there is a computer, then there is paints, there is sculpting, there is all these things. And the more you know, the more valuable you become in somebody who's going to hire you's eyes, or the more chance you have to switch careers or switch, let's say, for me, if my art career isn't necessarily doing what I need it to do at that particular moment, I concentrate more on movies. It's a way to keep funds coming into the household and elevate yourself as an artist. I think if you, I'm being long-winded here, but I think if you burn out on one style and have nowhere to go, you're screwed.
Yeah. Because you can always get a toy line.
You can always get a toy line or jeans or, something like that. I don't know what you're talking about, John. Yeah, you can.
So one thing, too, that you have a trademark symbol that goes on every piece of art that's you. Can you tell that story, how that came to be? I think it's fascinating.
I think I need to make up a new story. Just because, I think this one's just too normal. One time when I was in the deep jungles, I saw a chicken, so I had to put it on every painting. No, I put a chicken head in every painting that I do. And that's because a publisher at the time was hiring me to do a 3-issue series of a comic book. And I hadn't worked with him before, and he goes, Pryor, I'm going to hire you, but I know you hide things in your paintings. So if you hide anything, I'm going to fire you. I was like, dude, what would I do? I had a chicken head in every page. So I did. And I got really bold with it. I mean, there was a double splash page. You turn it sideways. It was a giant chicken head. And, during about the 3rd issue, this was before we had cell phones, He calls me up at about 3 a.m, and I answer the phone. Hello. And he goes, yeah, I'd fire you right now, but I'm too busy looking for your chicken heads. Click. And it just stuck. And, you know, I was like, man, out of all the things that could have stuck, all my fans wanted to keep seeing chicken heads. And I was like, man, why couldn't it pick something cooler? And, you know, my wife goes, well, it fits you. And I was like, well, honey, that's not a compliment. But, okay. But that's how the chicken head story, that's why I had a chicken head and everything.
Yeah, the book covers you did for us recently.
Yep.
You know, the first thing I did is, okay, let's find the chicken head.
That's you know, everybody does. The sad part about it is once you see it, you can't unsee it. So, you know, pretty soon it just starts haunting you in your sleep, and you're like, chicken heads. And then then you go crazy, and then I have to pay the bill. No,
you've got. I mean, this is all good stuff because this is now Rob Pryor. Each time that you do one of these things, here the R and the P gets a bit bigger and a bit bigger on.
Hey, pretty soon the painting is going to be 1 inch by 1 inch, but my initials are going to be like 4 foot by 4 foot.
Which works because it's going to be
sure.
Find the chicken head inside the R.
Find the chicken head in the R. See?
Exactly.
See, there's all an end to the game.
Yes. So I guess, you know, as a judge for the Illustrators of the Future contest, what would you say to the aspiring illustrator or someone? Because one thing that people also say, yeah, well, I'm not Rob Pryor. You know, it's like...
Thank God nobody wants to be. Any more people inside my head and we're screwed.
But they can aspire to be it. But some people, especially the beginning artist or writer, is so full of self-doubt and self-invalidation that they take on because they know I can't do that. And so what advice you give to somebody like that? Because, you know, you still have people like Larry Elmore says, he's always talking about, God, I'm just not good enough. He's always talking about somebody else being better than him. Mm-hmm. He's always trying to learn more. He's an amazing artist. So it seems to be, maybe not everybody, but seems to be part of the DNA of a real artist that just, they pour their soul into it and they're afraid of rejection or whatever it is. So what advice do you have for the aspiring artist?
Screw rejection. Who cares? No, the aspiring artist, you know, I'll say the line that drives my entire family crazy because I say it all the time is you can do anything you want to do if you want to do it bad enough. But, you know, the other truth to that matter is if I'm going to give some advice to somebody, it's one thing to become better because that's our goal as an artist or whatever, and it should be at all times, is to constantly get better. And you don't have to get better for anybody else. You have to get better for you. But the thing I find that holds most artists back isn't anything to do with art. It is to do with that little ball of fear that lives in their stomach and the rejections that they get. And what people don't understand is sometimes if you're turning it into an art director, unless you've turned it in your portfolio in 3 times, right? Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that first time, you know, he had a hangover. You know, maybe the second time, he'd already gone through 1,000 portfolios that day. He doesn't want to look at another portfolio. So if yours happened to be one of the last ones he looked at, it's going into a pile as rejected.
Yeah.
You know, or any number of things could have happened to him on that day. Or maybe you're just not quite there yet.
Right.
The things you need to do is, you know, write the assistant and say, hey, I'm just asking so I can improve. What can I do to get better? And maybe they'll tell you, maybe they won't, but don't stop. Just keep doing it because if I'm correct, there has been writers. In fact, I think the winner last year, and don't quote me on this because it's either the winner or one of the runners up who had entered the contest. You know,
47 times.
47 times and didn't give up. You know, 47 times, 46 rejections. Oh well, but he did it. People give up because their feelings get hurt. And, you know, what I say is go cry me a river, do it again. So that's the biggest advice I could give.
That's awesome. And then do you find that when you do things to... when you first started, did you try to emulate others? Is that part of the curve of developing your own style is to emulate other masters, people that you like?
I think emulation comes with learning. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to be able to do before, you know, you have to be able to walk before you can run. So I think emulation is a very healthy, natural part. Now, if you then make your career, which I have people who then send me pictures saying, I'm going in this direction in my full career, and look, it looks just like yours. There's a part of me that weeps for their soul. No, that and makes me want to tase them. That makes me go, you know what? Be original. You know, I tell all of my apprentices, study what I do, learn from what I do, but don't become me. Find your own voice. That was a whole big thing yesterday. Just find your own voice. That is what I say is sure. Long-winded answer. Thanks, Pryor. Is emulate, but then create.
Good. Well, that's very awesome advice. Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up here in terms of aspiring artists or even a writer or the future of society as you see it going now and the role of artists in shaping it?
I think that as artists all around the world probably should quit shaving cats. If I had to give any bit of advice, I would say probably just stop it. Stop it now before you're on post office walls.
Bing!
No, I just say push forward, do what you can, and enter this contest for Christ's sake. Enter the contest.
It's free for crying out loud.
It's free. It can elevate you, and it's good to have competition. It's great. If you don't win, that's even better because you should walk away going, well, I'm going to win next year. Competition is really good because there's only a couple ways you get better, and that is by study and by drive. I often say this one thing: I would rather hire somebody who has great drive and skill than somebody who is lazy and has talent.
That makes sense. It makes actually good sense. There's a lot of talented people out there. So one last thing then.
Sure.
Because I just realized on the importance of social media or making yourself known because artists...
I hate social media. Yes, it's very important.
But in terms of... Because I've noticed that artists are great with pictures, but not always so good with words.
Yeah, I'm one of those. Which is why I have somebody do my social media. Just kidding. No, I'm not. But I do answer almost everything, especially in Instagram. So hint, hint. If somebody's write me an Instagram. I'll answer it. Otherwise, you're going to get somebody else answering it.
Yeah.
Social media nowadays is super important, and the younger kids in my studio try to point that out. Because they're really good at it, and I'm not.
Yeah.
But it's vitally important, and I think learning technologies as they come up is also important. However you can get yourself out there, you should get yourself out there.
Good.
And now there's so many ways to do it. So, yeah.
Good. Okay, well, that pretty much covers what I wanted to talk about, because I think it's really important what you've got to say to these aspiring artists, because it's important they need to know that wherever they are now, they can make it to where
they can if they want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you got to want to.
We've got to want to a lot.
But yeah. Thank you for coming down to the studio and entering my realm of madness. And yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot, Rob. And thank you for listening. Subscribe to the Writers of the Future and Illustrators of the Future podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Writers and Illustrators of the Future are contests created by L. Ron Hubbard to provide a means for the aspiring writer and artist to be seen and acknowledged. It is free to enter and open to new and amateur short story writers and artists of science fiction or fantasy.